any type of emotional, financial, or any type of situation that might make it hard for them to function in a typical traditional classroom setting. We are there to help them and to guide them. At EnvoyTT, we put mental health at the forefront. We believe that truly you need to have a sound mental state in order to be successful. And we try our very best in order to help kids achieve that. One way that we do that is that we have our mentors. We don't call our volunteers tutors. We call them mentors because we believe that these people should motivate, they should encourage, and they should help students outside of just teaching them to read, write, and do some math. We've also established a peer supporter arm at Envoy that helps students outside of academics. It's supposed to be the first line of first aid, psychological first aid that would help a student that just needs to talk about maybe a bad day, a bad exam, or anything like that. So without further ado, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We have a very lovely collaboration happening with CyberSafeTT, and it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Darren Duray. So Mr. Duray is an IT professional with over 20 years of industry experience. He holds a BSc of Computer Studies and Management, as well as an MA in Creative Design and Entrepreneurship, all from the University of the West Indies. Mr. Duray has focused his studies on internet-related technologies, which has led to his current role as a member of management team at the campus IT services at the UWI St. Augustine. He is also the founder and digital anthropologist at the CyberSafeTT Foundation, a non-profit organization with a mission to educate students, parents, and teachers on cyber safety, cyberbullying, and internet addiction, and social media etiquette. Since 2020, Mr. Duray is part of the Facebook Community Standards regional group, where he has the opportunity to shape online safety standards for regional users on the Facebook platform. This partnership is one that is very close to the heart of EnvoyTT because we've understood now that our students are on a digital platform. They are exposed to many different things, and we really want to drill in them being safe and them having the best use of all the technology that's available to them. We have launched an anti-bullying campaign because in addition to understanding that mental health is important, we need to understand that kindness is also important and that we should be each other's keepers. So without further ado, Mr. Duray.
Thank you, Anuradha, for that welcome and fascinating intro. I really applaud the work that Envoy is doing, acting as mentors. I really do like that word. It really uplifts folks, and I commend you and your team for taking this initiative, and I'm also really happy to be part of it as well. So yes, cyberbullying, all of your students, they are online, and now they are engaging not just with teaching and learning, but this is the area that they are playing as well and interacting and, getting their social status. And that's probably the first message that we could give the parents out there. Kids are not interacting face to face, but they still have that desire and need to be part of the crew, the in crowd, right? So they would gravitate to the next best place, which is of course social media. And, they may do things to win the hearts of their fellow classmates and friends. And sometimes that might, hurt others as well. And then that's where you end up with things like cyberbullying happening and so on. So I really hope that the parents, looking on, take some notes. We will definitely have a question and answers segment after, before we actually begin, though, I want to ask Caitlin to launch a poll, which I think will help inform not just CyberSafeTT, but also the rest of the parents here to see, you realize this is one of the messages in the slides. You are not alone, and it's either for the kids or the parents as well. So we can go ahead and launch that poll, and we'll see how many folks answer. And Caitlin, we could keep the poll up for a little while because we actually had, I believe it was just about 80 participants registered for our session. So we could keep this as a running poll for a while and see how things go. So Anuradha, this is Cybersecurity Month and Cyberbullying Month. There are so many different initiatives and so on that's taking place. Is there any particular reason, why it is you guys chose cyberbullying as the theme for this particular campaign that you're working on with us?
Yes, there is actually. So, Envoy has been up and running for about a year now, a year and some. And actually, one of the most reported cases that our students would bring to us is that they are being cyberbullied, be it even via the Zoom chat. They're being cyberbullied. Maybe it's on Instagram messages. They're all being faced with some level of unkindness, as we choose to say it at Envoy. And we realize that it goes deeper than, maybe it's happening to one child and that child came to us, but there are tens and 20 and so many more children that it's happening to. So we realize that there's a serious need to, to bring this to the light.
Yeah, and the parents sitting in on, and the folks at Envoy as well may have seen in the news, and this video was circulated. A very unfortunate incident of bullying that happened in a school. So some information actually came to CyberSafeTT on the matter, and whilst we're not going to give much details, I can let you know that that particular act did start online. So it's something for us to bear in mind as well. That cyberbullying, it's virtual acts, but it can actually have real life consequences. And I think with that, we can begin the presentation. This afternoon, I believe we have enough parents, to start our session. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to start speaking about cyberbullying. And we are actually going to cover a few more topics this afternoon. Um, and I have them listed here actually. We're going to speak about cyberbullying, and I like to bring things into the local context. Had the distinct opportunity and privilege to work with the Telecommunications Authority of Trinidad and Tobago a couple of years ago, and we were able to survey a lot of students and parents and teachers. And I like to share this data with our crowd so that they know that we're not talking about what happens in North America or in UK. This is actually happening right here. Okay, so we're going to speak a little bit more also on digital footprint, a very serious topic, cyber grooming, which I know a lot of the parents probably don't even know of the term, right? And of course, I must keep my cybersafety hat and speak a little bit about internet addiction. It is one of the things that I am researching right now. So we are here really to speak about cyberbullying. And before we even get into the depths of it, I always like to share this slide. And this is a slide, it's referring to empathy. And I think that this is one of the main causes, to be honest with you, why it is we are seeing so many cases of cyberbullying in not just in Trinidad and Tobago, but in the world. I am of the belief that the younger generation, they don't have the level of empathy that is required for them to have some level of restraint, whether it is face to face or even in the virtual environment. And as the definition here says, it's really the ability to step in someone's shoes and understand where they are coming from, why probably they may be in a position like that. I have to say, back in the day, you might probably remember a classmate who may have come to school, might not have the best shoes, may not have the best uniform, and nothing that they may have might have been new. And unfortunately, that person, that child might have been made fun of because of no fault of theirs, but just their situation. And I would say probably the good thing about it back then is that social media was not that prevalent, so maybe it was able to stay within a closed environment. But that's different with things now because of that lack of empathy and want to make fun and force someone into doing something. You end up in a particular situation where it happens online, and it's not just limited to the classroom or the school. It's now for the entire world to see. And again, I draw reference to that video that was shared, of that bullying incident in the school. Now, it was filmed, so probably they wanted it to reach, maybe a little bit wider than just the school, but who knew it would have reached where it did. And parents, I want you to just take a little bit of note from this one. I know, and maybe I might be guilty of it as well. We would have toiled hard to reach where we are, and maybe we are giving our kids a little bit more than we would have had when we were small. But to them, sometimes it might be interpreted as a privilege, and that they may be better than the other person, and that again also contributes in a certain way to speaking bad about someone, or ostracizing them, or outing, as they say. And we learn about a little more of the different types of cyberbullying activities. So it's really important for us to always bring things back into perspective. Empathy and privilege. It's probably not what you thought you would have heard to start off a conversation on cyberbullying, but when you actually get down to the psyche of it, and you speak to the kids, and you get a sense of understanding where they're coming from, you realize that 9 out of 10 times they are not really a bully. They are not someone who wants to go out and make a scene, as they say. But it's just that they may have been brought up in a particular way. They may be interacting with peers who have been brought up in that way. And if they're not told, listen, you have to have empathy, and not just because you can make fun of. So it's important that we think about those perspectives. And let's get to the definition of cyberbullying, because that's what we're here for, right? And it really took me a while to come up with something that this succinct, but it's the act of tormenting someone over the internet, right? If that doesn't explain it to you, the words to the right will probably help. When we say tormenting, we kind of, looking at threatening and harassing and humiliating and embarrassing. Now, it's important that we understand this, because one of the problems that I realize that we face for both young and old, adults as well as kids, they do not understand sometimes that they are engaging in a cyberbullying act, right? And what might be presented as just some sort of fun, I just making fun of you, really and truly, it is cyberbullying. Now, here's the danger in that, because sometimes we may take that joke a little too far. And again, remember, it's not going to die down when the recess bell rings or when lunch is over. This is on the internet and it's there to stay. So when the victim, goes home or the next day, and they look at the social media, and they look at Facebook or Instagram or whatever platform they may have, or even WhatsApp. WhatsApp is the worst. And they keep looking at it, and they always see, whether it be that bad post, that meme that was made about them. It's like almost 10 or 100 times worse than that bullying act that might have happened offline or within a school environment. And this is where it becomes overbearing for someone to deal with. And I've had instances where folks have come to CyberSafeTT, for asking for help, because they just genuinely did not know how to deal with it. And these are parents. I was in a seminar with Rotary International a couple of weeks ago, and I gave an example about a young girl who, we all know SE and the pressures and the stresses that it brings to all of our kids, right? She passed for her first choice, very prestigious school. And she was actually the only one from her school that, went to that secondary school. So trying to fit in, and, she got into a crowd that was very accurate with the social media platforms and so on. She was not. And, to cut that long story short, she ended up becoming the end result of a meme. Her face was put on her body, and it got really, really bad. So much so, and this is the interesting part. So much so that she had to ask for a transfer. So to understand this, you cannot walk down the halls of your school because you are so bothered by what people are seeing and laughing about you, not in a joke in the school, but online. And just couldn't get away from it. She couldn't concentrate, she couldn't focus. And I have some statistics that I'm going to show you which really support that particular case. So just imagine you have a son or daughter, you would have worked tirelessly with them, to study and possibly get their first, second, or third, to get to the school of their choice. And the reason that they can't perform or they want to leave is because some other child thought that it was fun to post up something on the internet. So it's very, very serious. There are so many different techniques that are used by cyberbullies to interact with their victims. I have some highlighted here because uh, these are the ones that I think are a little bit more prominent in Trinidad and Tobago, spreading rumors, right, of some sort of physical or sexual nature, sharing of private photos. And I don't think we've grasped really how bad it is in terms of sharing of private photos. Now, I'm sure the parents will probably want to ask me, well, why were the pictures taken out in the first place? That is a topic for a different conversation, right? And we can get into that. But the fact of the matter is, it happens, sharing of private photos and creating of fake profiles and masquerading and saying bad things or pretending, impersonating to be someone else. So these are all different types of cyberbullying activities. And later on, I will make reference to some of the laws which really brings to reality, as well, some of the things that we say. Now, again, in my capacity as director at CyberSafeTT, we would have seen a few different cases come to us, right? There was one in particular where a businessman actually was communicating with another businessman on social media, and one made, I would say a relatively derogatory comment about the other one on the internet, and he decided, okay, no, that was where you drew the line, and he took it to the courts, looked at the offenses against the person act, and was actually able to take him to court, and he was rewarded damages of $30,000. Now, this happens very regularly. And it's because I think our nature, our human nature right here in Trinidad and Tobago is to say what we want to say, whatever comes out of our mouth it doesn't matter. It happens on the street, it happens when we interact with folks. But take that on the internet, it's a whole different ballgame. And this is why we need to start educating our kids at this age so that when they get older, they realize that, listen, this is what I should and should not do. Because it could get me in serious trouble, right? It could bring my business into disrepute if I say something bad about someone else's. I will probably have to, pay. And our laws, even though we don't have that cybercrime bill in enactment, our laws have been able to, work itself in to actually deal with a particular situation. So these are virtual acts, but they have real life consequences, right? I want to share with you some statistics now. And again, this would have been from the CyberSafeTT and TAT survey, which we done. We were actually able to survey over 3,005 students in 2016. So nearly 1 in 5 students report being bullied during the school year. And this includes both cyberbullying as well as physical bullying. And here's the interesting thing. Over 60% of students who experience cyberbullying reporting that it immensely impacted their ability to learn and feel safe while at school. Now, school's supposed to be a fun place. It's supposed to be the place where, you go and you meet your friends and you make your lifelong memories. But again, one act, it really only takes one act of a student who did not know better to say something, post something on Instagram or make something on TikTok and share it. And now you have the victim not even wanting to come to school, not even feeling safe in school. Parents might see this as academic decline, right? They may see the student or the child becoming very, very, reclusive. They're not speaking out, they're not talking. They're in their rooms all the time. And you might think, well, they're going through a phase, and that very well might be the case. But we always have to bear in mind that they are spending a significant amount of their time behind the screen. And now they're doing that because they have to learn, but they also have to play. And we've taken away, well, not we, but for everyone, we've taken away that ability to do that face to face. And hopefully, we might be able to get back to that level of normalcy soon. And I'm looking forward to it, to be honest with you. But this is where they play. This is where they are interacting now. And that space is supposed to be safe. And as Anurada said, even within Zoom, even within the Teams chat, even within Discord that, a lot of teachers use, these things happen. And, they may not necessarily want to engage. You might find that the child is just sitting, looking and on, listening and closing off as soon as finished. There's no interaction, there's no engagement, right? I would have used, the Ministry of Education's platform when it just came out, learn.gov.tt. And, I did make a report. I believe it may have been resolved, but anyone could have logged on to that platform. Anyone. You didn't have to be a registered student of Trinidad and Tobago. You didn't even have to be a national of Trinidad and Tobago. And you were allowed to interact with all the students that logged into that platform. So, you have the topic of cyber grooming that we're going to speak about later, but cyberbullying as well, and sharing of information and so on. So a little bit more on the statistics. Students who experience bullying or cyberbullying are nearly twice likely to attempt suicide. And this is from Hinduja Apache. And these guys have a cyberbullying organization in the United States. You can take down their names and, have a look at the work that they've done. I actually follow them and I communicate with them regularly, to be honest with you. And, they are doing some really fantastic work in the area of cyberbullying. And what I've realized is everyone here knows that we like to copy what we see in the United States. And unfortunately, we copy the bad things as well. This is one of them, we have had situations, and when I say we, just my interaction with schools, situations where both boys and girls may resort to some sort of self-harm because of multiple reasons, one of them being cyberbullying as well, and not knowing how to deal with the particular situation. If you have someone telling you, posting and sending you a WhatsApp message every hour on the hour that you ugly, you should die, I don't like you, and that's how it is, that is exactly how it is, it will get to you, right? You might block, they might create another account and send it, because sometimes this bully is so persistent, and then the victim now, at some point will give up because it's like, I just don't know what to do. And yes, parents, this is an unfortunate reality that we have. But it's not to paint doom and gloom, because even organizations like Envoy, where you have mentors, where you have people to speak to, and to get you out of that rut, is where we definitely need to look at. I'm going to read a quote for you here. So I was bullied for a long time in high school. I literally had my hair pulled out sometimes, and it became so bad that mentally, emotionally, physically, I was drained. I turned to pills. I even considered suicide. Now, this is actually a quote from Ziguni Mohammed. And she has made it well. She has actually done quite well for herself. She's a senior multimedia journalist. Everyone knows her name in Trinidad and Tobago. So you can definitely get out of that particular situation, but you need to have the support. And that's one of the things that I want parents to understand. I know sometimes we, have our arms length when it comes to our kids and their devices, and you say, listen, they know what they're doing. I don't know anything about this phone and whatever that, and this app, and take this and take that, whatever. And you tend to put a mental block when they're interacting with the device, but we shouldn't, because you genuinely don't know what they're saying or what's going on, right? And sometimes they may believe that they have to continue interacting because they may believe or perceive that it is their fault, and that's the thing. You need to let them know as well. And conversation, parents, that's, to me, that's the silver bullet. I often say that there is no silver, but I believe that conversation is that silver bullet. Taking away the phone and deleting WhatsApp and whatever and taking off internet, temporary measures. Conversation is the permanent one. Let them know that it's not their fault if they see someone being bullied, or if they are themselves the victim, that they are not alone. You are not alone. I think that's really important, because the perception that you cannot speak to someone because maybe let's just say, I sent an inappropriate picture to someone, and I end up in a particular situation on the internet, and now I'm being bullied, or now I'm being tormented, or even being blackmailed. And if they don't feel like they have that channel of communication, whether it is with their peers or their parents or that aunt or uncle, it's going to be worse for them. So you need to continue to let them know that, hey, if anything happened on the internet, feel free to just let me know. We are here to help, and definitely it is not weak to seek help. And we used to say this of the boys, but there's no real gender bias as it pertains to this. It's across the board, and the statistic has actually shown that. So what to do if you've been bullied? You've probably heard that 3 pointer, stop, block, and tell, right? Stop interacting with the person online. And this would be some instructions that you could screenshot and share with your kids, right? And you could always visit cybersafettt.com. I have this all over the site, right? So stop, block, and tell. Stop interacting with the person online if possible, because sometimes that might be difficult. As simple as that instruction might seem, that might be a difficult task to achieve. So, right, so limit, reduce, and then eventually stop interacting with the person online. Take screenshots for evidence, because it may be a point where that bullying activity was actually a threat, right? A threat to harm. For example, again, that unfortunate video that we would have seen, if that kid would have received some level of threat and had within him to report it or to share it to someone, maybe that event could have been prevented, right? You can block the personal account. Almost every single social media platform now has the ability to block someone from following you or interacting with you. And that's something that I think we need to emphasize and show our kids. And parents, you should figure it out yourselves, right? And that's often an icebreaker. You know, you could always, ask your kids, so here is now, I need to block this person from seeing me. You could show them how to do it. And that in itself will let you know whether, one, they are aware of it, they know how to do it, and it will open the door for a conversation like this. And then tell. So we spoke about some different methods of cyberbullying in the past, where you could do impersonation of someone, fake social media accounts. And again, this is quite prevalent in Trinidad and Tobago for whatever reason. You can definitely report fake accounts to the social media platform. I know that a lot of them have that ability. And because of my interaction with Facebook and by extension Instagram, what I have grown to find out is that if one person reports it, they're not going to take it on. So get your friends to report them. Get the community. The more people that report a fake account, or the more people that report, an account that is, being a bully or doing really inappropriate things, the algorithms that work behind these platforms will pick it up faster and act on it even faster as well. Right? So you can report to the social media platform and or to the authorities. And again, if it is a threat on someone's life, you have to make a report to your local police station. That has been the course of action that you need to take. I believe you can go directly to the cybercrime unit, but you still need to have a police report if certain things need to happen and you need to follow that particular course of law. So, make that report to the to your local police station. And this is one of the arms in which CyberSafeTT has helped victims in the past. We will carry you through that process. And depending on how serious it is, we can fast track it, to different avenues as well. Now, different folks would react differently when they are cyberbullied, right? Some of them might just simply be overwhelmed, like that young girl who had to end up leaving her school. Get someone to help you report it, because sometimes this activity can be so bad that they don't even want to see their phone, right? So they could speak to their friends, parents as well, leave that group or social media platform, and definitely this digital detox. You'll see a little bit more about that later on. I think we should make that part of our diet, to be honest with you, a digital detox, once a week for some people. But definitely it's needed, to be honest with you. It's needed because social media, internet usage has just become ubiquitous. We breathe air, we on the internet, we need Wi-Fi to live. And because we may let that take over our better senses, we get consumed in it sometimes and end up in these particular situations. I have a term which I'm writing a paper on called internet idleness, and I think that it also attributes to someone just becoming idle on the internet and doing what they shouldn't be doing. One of those activities, which is cyberbullying. Yeah. Now, on the flip side, if you're empowered, right? So, you might encounter cyberbullying activities and listen, I'm going to deal with this person. I'm not saying you're going to throw fire with fire, right? But, you're empowered. So you say something kind of positive, right? You engage that in that bully. Because again, the research has shown that sometimes the bully themselves just don't have someone to speak to. And this is how they react. And it's so interesting, because I actually had real life experiences with this, where someone came to us and said, listen, we've been bullied. I said, okay, anyone try talking to the student, try talking to the guy, try talking to the girl. It's like, no, well, we just kind of assume that that's what they are bully and they ignorant and arrogant, and that was not the case. They were just looking to reach out, and whether it be that they learned to behave like that because of their surroundings and environment, they're now taking it out in the schoolyard or online. But because the child does not know any better, this is how they're interacting. Sometimes all they need is a little bit more guidance, or like the mentors, like EnvoyTT can provide, right? So, let the bullies know that what they're doing is not okay. Talk to the person privately, send them a private message and see, how well we can actually deal with it. So again, this is not an easy thing to do. I don't think it is what we would normally try to approach. We will more try to do the stop, block, and tell. I want to just, kind of rid myself of that. But sometimes you might feel empowered and you might say, listen, I'm actually going to try not just to help myself, but to help the other person as well. Now, if you're seeing someone else being bullied, you can also stop, block, and tell. Stop sharing the content related to that victim. And this is something, I don't think our population, or maybe the entire world's population, really understands. We have the power in our hands to stop something from going viral, right? We might see something, bad happening to, a student, like that video, but everybody had it. Everybody saw it, right? I've stopped sharing things, full stop, good or bad. I think sharing is actually worse than posting, right? Once the content is made viral, then you are empowering the bully. And we don't want to do that. You don't want to empower someone to think, yes, I have made this person feel more embarrassed than I would ever imagine, because listen, it's not just the class that's seen this, it's the entire country. And it make news better yet. And now that's just giving them more fuel to the fire. So stop sharing content related to the victim. And I always emphasize this when I speak to the kids, they have a lot of power in their hands. And, that's a double-edged sword, right? Because unfortunately, sharing that type of content, gets more likes and gets more shares, and that's what they want. That's what they're looking for, right? It ups their social status because, hey, you share that video. Yeah, I see it from your page. That type of conversation, not really understanding the repercussive effects to the victim by sharing it. So you could always mention to your kids, put yourself in their shoes. Would you want that video to be shared if that was you, right? And 10 out of 10 times they're going to tell you no. So we have to inculcate that behavior in them. So block the cyberbullying account. Again, this is if you see someone being cyberbullied, you want to limit their ability to spread that hate. And you can also report. Remember I said, the more people report a particular account, the faster these social media platforms will react to actually making something. So we spoke about, all the different things regarding how to pinpoint a cyberbully and, what you should probably do. But there are other things that, we can look out for in terms of the consequences. And we spoke about, the law relating to cyberbullying. And we do have the Offences Against the Person Act. And again, I did not put the cybercrime bill because it is not in law as yet. So let's look at what we have at hand. This is the Offences Against the Person Act, where, for example, if you have, intentionally caused emotional distress to someone, if there's invasion of privacy, which I'm sure everyone here could interpret to mean, sharing of inappropriate photos and videos, defamation of character, those are parts of that act which can be used and have been used in cases of cyberbullying, right? Note that last point, parents can actually attract liability for the actions of their kids. Now, we also do have the National School Code of Conduct, and I've been telling parents, recently, Google up this particular document. You'll get it on the Ministries of Education website, and look at page 48 and 51, where it speaks directly to cyberbullying and social media. And when you find it, share it with your children, because they need to understand as well that, they cannot get away with these activities. Some of these activities, depending on its severity, will result in expulsion, suspension off the bat, but will result in suspension. If you visit, and if we have any teachers on the conversation tonight, if you visit CyberSafeTT, under my resources menu, I have a cyberbullying disciplinary matrix. And it's really used to help schools try to deal with cyberbullying activities. and maybe even mom and dad could look at it as well and extrapolate something for home, right? Um, because some activities might not be severe, but some might be quite. And we'll have to learn how to deal with these type of activities, especially in a virtual environment. Because we are in a virtual environment does not mean that we can't try to continue to discipline, right? Whereas in the face-to-face environment, yes, you might have been expelled, you had to go and write something on the board. I know they still do those things, but there were mechanisms. But because we are in a virtual environment does not mean that all hell breaks loose, right? And then we also do have Computer Misuse Act, which kind of more speaks about hacking and so on, not too much along the lines of cyberbullying. But there is also the Children's Act, and we did speak about privacy and defamation of character. But for those of us who are not aware, we do have the Children's Act. Again, you can Google this up, but Chapter 46, Part 8 speaks about, well, it defines child, which is in Trinidad and Tobago, it's under the age of 18. And this particular copy here speaks about sharing of child pornography. We may have come across, photos and videos shared to us via WhatsApp. We may not necessarily know the age of the person in those videos and or pictures. The recommendation by the protective services is if it reaches your phone, now you can't really prevent it from reaching your phone. If it reaches your phone, delete it immediately. Because there is this term called intent. And if you have something on your device that's not you, it's not someone that you might know, even if it is someone you know, the question is, what is your intent? Because do you intend to share or spread or continue to defame this person? Then you can be culpable and charged under these different acts as well. So whilst this speaks about child pornography, the act also caters for even kids having this type of information on their phone. So we did look at the consequences of it from a legal perspective. But I want to touch a little bit and start looking into this whole concept of your digital footprint, because engaging in acts like this, again, stays on the internet, can be screenshot and shared on the internet, and it can affect not just your current activities in life, but it can affect your future activities. Every single university logo that you would have seen here would have had, some sort of issue regarding cyberbullying or an online infraction, and resulted in the student being penalized some way or the other. That could even have resulted in expulsion. And I do have some headlines and articles, not just related to university stuff, but you would see Trinidad and Tobago flag by certain headlines. Some of these are quite recent, 2018, 2019. We had one from 2015 where folks were actually charged based on the activities that they engage in on the internet. Facebook posts, paid money. A pastor awarded $430,000 in damages for a Facebook post against him. So the law is here. It can be used against individuals. And again, we have to ensure that from the youngest of ages, that we educate folks into knowing that you generally cannot say what you feel you want to say on the internet and cyberbully someone. There are so many different levels of repercussions. It can reach the ultimate, but it can also cause you a lot of pain, a lot of strife. So we really have to be quite aware of cyberbullying. Now I'm going to look into another topic and switch gears a bit, and we're going to speak about online grooming or cyber grooming. So cyber grooming is when someone seeks to build an emotional connection or befriend someone on the internet to gain their trust. It is often linked to some sort of sexual purpose or with the intent of that, and it has been reported, to be linked to human trafficking. Where does it take place? Sorry. It takes place on social media, on WhatsApp, online gaming environments, and I want to spend a little time on that this afternoon. And online apps with messaging and chat functionality. So you may be wondering why it is, we're going to speak about online grooming tonight. It is because it is quite prevalent, in Trinidad and Tobago. So there are so many different recruitment tactics that start off in the social media space, where they befriend the victim. And I want to stick a pin here. Uh, Sometimes individuals, young and old, use social media as a means to express themselves, vent, share some level of emotion that they might not be able to do in real life. And there are different platforms that people gravitate towards. Twitter has been one of them that I have had some real life examples with right here in Trinidad and Tobago. And the unfortunate thing is these cyber groomers, they are professionals in their own right. And they look in on, and they have different tools that they can actually, check to see what somebody's posting up and whether, they are sad or depressed. And, they can then befriend them and tell them exactly what they want to hear. And at some point in time, they're going to make some sort of promises. This, I'm going to get you out of all of this. And then, it can actually reach to the point where, they may have them, share inappropriate pictures, and that goes on a whole different road. But what I wanted to raise to you today is that recent studies have actually shown that, they're able to buy electronic gifts for individuals online. And these electronic gifts can be used in gaming environments. So things like V-Bucks and other types of e-currency can be transferred to their account without the parents even knowing. And again, it's just a tactic to befriend them. So the same way in which you as a parent would tell your child not to take candy from a stranger, it applies on the internet as well. Because these guys and girls and ladies and men who are actually trying to lure kids in, as I said, they are professionals in their own right. A pedophile can actually groom someone in as little as 20 minutes, right? That's a scary statistic, because we know that they spend far much more than 20 minutes on the internet. And like I said, they are professionals in their own right. They do have answers to almost every question. And on this particular screen here, it is small, and I apologize for that. But you can screenshot it and maybe, expand and look at it later. This actually shows, what emotion they may be feeling. As I said, they may come on the internet or create a social media account, another social media account, to express themselves, because, they might be depressed and they might be feeling some level of fear. And social media is a space where, they could go and express themselves and say what they want. And whilst they may get friends to help them out, and even strangers to respond and make them feel good, there are these individuals as well who are preying on these type of victims. And they will look at someone saying, nobody gets me, you don't really know me, and the immediate response would be, I understand you. And it's just the way in which they do that level of engagement that makes it really, really scary. And again, this does not only apply to kids. So we do have everyone coming on internet and being a little bit vulnerable. So within the last couple of years, you would have had folks maybe losing jobs. And what we would have seen is a plethora of job advertisements coming up with very attractive offerings requiring almost little or no experience. And you may have made a decision to go and meet this person, and it could result, it very well could result in some sort of human trafficking activity. And it was reported, the most recent one that was reported in the news would have been in 2020. And I do recall, even though the act happened in 2019, it was of a woman who, saw a job advertisement, had an engagement with someone, decided to meet with them in the car park of a mall. She, however, went with someone else. And when things, was kind of going south of it, she was able to get away. Made a report, and it took a while, but yes, they were actually able to find the perpetrators. So this happens right here in Trinidad and Tobago, right? Another thing that I want to bear in mind as well, Facebook has this feature, request for recommendations, so you might ask, where sells the best barbecue in Chaguanas? And a lot of people might respond, try this one, try that one. Someone might actually respond and offer, to meet you there or to help you out with that particular request. Just be guided and cautious as to, what you what you do on who you interact with, right? So that was just a little bit that I wanted to speak to you on, cyber grooming, online grooming, and also a little bit on uh, human trafficking. Now, the last point that I want to speak about this afternoon would be that of internet addiction. And I actually had a school that had asked me to do a whole presentation just on internet and gaming addiction, which I'm going to do in a couple of weeks, because it is a problem. Right? It is a problem right now because the same device that kids are actually using to to learn on, it's the same device that they use to play. It's the same device that they probably have the games installed on, right? And when mom and dad is busy with work and the kids is there behind the computer, you think that they're learning, you think that they're listening to this, but they're busy, playing up some games. And that's just during the day, right? So internet addiction, it is a real thing. I have done, years of study in this particular area, and I've come up with this particular definition. It's the excessive and uncontrollable consumption of internet-related content, right? That results in deterioration of a person's mental, physical, and social well-being. Now, this particular definition helps me answer the question when parents ask, well, how much time is too much time for kids to be on the internet? Or how much time should I allow them to be? And really and truly, right now, there is no 2, 3 hour, 4 hour answer to that question. Because they can actually be on the internet and doing something quite productive and earning you a lot of money, or earning themselves a lot of money, right? We've seen so many different really fantastic stories about young kids, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, in the social space, in the internet space, selling NFTs and making hundreds of thousands of dollars. Selling a product that they can make at home, whether it be cakes or cookies, making money and doing something. And these are kids who, probably only in standard 3 or 4 or in form 4, right? So you don't want to discourage certain activities. However, if this level of consumption of internet is resulting in the deterioration of the mental, physical, and social well-being, then we have something to worry about. It is at that point in time when we say, okay, we need to step back, we need to cut off internet at this time. I probably need to take away the device on this particular day, and I need to probably be a little bit more hovering over them, when they're doing some learning, right? Have a look at this slide, because if there's an activity that they may have been engaging in which really causes them to pay less attention, reducing sleep, they're uninterested with any sort of activities that might require physical activity, worse yet, and I think this is probably one that hurts me the most, where they've stopped doing something that they have been good at. It could have been playing the piano, playing cricket or football or whatever it is. And again, yes, we are in a very different time right now where that activity itself might not be as easy to do as it was before. But I am saying that it is not an excuse to not do it at all, wherever possible. So you as a parent would know, and you can bring that to their attention. You would have probably had that ability to do something really fantastic, but now all you're doing is, you're behind the game. And I have nothing against Fortnite. This was just the image that I used, right? It's one of the more popular ones, and there are quite a few. Now I have 3 slides coming up with scenarios, real life scenarios that I think each parent would like to see, as it would help speak to your kids about internet addiction. At least I'm hoping that it would. So again, real life scenarios, these would have been instances where, parents and kids would have come to CyberSafeTT, because they realized this is too much for me to deal with. So scenario 1, you are responsible for compiling and submitting a school group project. You started on the computer, but got distracted with a notification that some friends started an online gaming session. Here's what happens next. You stayed up too late gaming, you wake up later than you should, you end up brushing and skipping breakfast, get back to transportation, you make some folks late. Worse yet, you forgot to submit that group project the night before. Now, your classmates had to end up paying the penalty for that infraction. That's a real life thing. This could have happened in a primary school, even a secondary school, right? So, you sit on behind a computer to do your work because this is where you have to do it now. And you get a message, whether it be on your phone or whatever it is, hey, look, we started this gaming session. You say, all right, listen, Let me come and play the game a little bit, and I'll start back on, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, reach here, oh, I need to go and sleep. You forget about the assignment. And, the end result is what we spoke about. Scenario number 2. You are an aspiring first-year music student on scholarship at a foreign university and must maintain a high GPA, as well as compete in various musical concerts as a criteria to keep the scholarship. So here's what happens next. You are independent and alone at a foreign university, right? So there's no one keeping tabs on your academic process. That means mom and dad not there to tell you put on your phone, take off the TV and, do your work. Now, you came into university with a Netflix binging addiction, whether you knew it or not, right? Now you're in a whole new space, with a new world of online content. You're in a foreign country, so you're getting new series, new sitcoms, things you never would have gotten into that. And you just get overwhelmed. Unable to manage your studies because too much movies to look at. Your GPA drops, lose your scholarship. Real life scenario. So again, there's a progression. A little bit younger, now we're in tertiary education. Last example. You're working for a software development firm as a remote employee. You have multiple projects to manage and complete in a specific time frame. Now you are aware that you have an online gaming addiction. So you're working from home, you're alone, all right, no problem. You spend most of your time doing this satisfying that addiction, but you wake up late at night to complete work, or even vice versa. It's the end of the first quarter, and you know what? You finish everything. But you receive an email saying, we need to terminate your contract. The reason being, the company actually found unsanctioned software installed on your laptop, and it's gaming software. And it's like, listen, you can't be installing that on our laptops. This is work. So you lost that job. So again, because you didn't think that doing this activity was something bad or could impact on my daily activities, you didn't think twice about it. So we would have seen 3 different scenarios, starting from very young, even going up to, someone who just started to work. And the basic concept here is you have to understand that this topic of internet addiction is something that you have to communicate with and educate your kids about. Even you as adults might, fall prey to some of these types of activities. And we have to understand that there is a time where we need to step back, right? So in order for us to keep an eye on internet addiction, we need to identify, one, that it's happening. We need to interrupt the fact that it is happening. And we probably might need an intervention. And I'm saying that last part because it is not something that we should take lightly. The word addiction is not there, by any luck or chance. It is an addiction. It preys on the dopamine effect for us to want to continue to use these things. There are many documentaries written out there and video documentaries that you can look at which speak about applications that are actually written and built to keep you connected and increase that dopamine levels and make you addicted. So put that in perspective to some sort of narcotic addiction. If someone is actually addicted to drugs, you can't just tell them, hey, stop. They need to be checked into a facility. They need to have assistance and help to stop that addiction. The same thing applies to the internet addiction. You can't just say, well, turn off the phone, or you can't just take off the internet. It has to be some level of intervention, and you have to work with, the child or the adult to come out of that level of internet addiction. And sometimes it might require a digital detox. And this doesn't necessarily need to be something that happens on a scheduled basis, but it could be activities that you sort of build into your routine, turning off notifications. I always say that, and people's like, how can I live? I must need to know when I get that message, right? But turning off your notifications will do so many things for you, other than improve your battery life, right? Not use your phone while eating. Have conversations at the breakfast, lunch, and or dinner table. Believe you me, you can learn so much about members of your family, but you might find that we're having a meal and everyone is in their phone. Try leaving your devices, if not out of the bedroom, at least not an arm's length away. I think that's just a recipe for disaster. You're going to pick up your phone when you see that WhatsApp message come in and say, I'm just going to check that message, and 3 o'clock in the morning reach and you're still checking that message, right? We all know how it works. You know, schedule some internet free time. I think this is really important. You can actually do that with your routers as well. Turn off the internet, you know, for an hour every day during a specific time when you know you think everybody might not necessarily have to do homework or research or even work itself, and we can interact with one another. You know, um, reduce the number of apps that you might have on your phone. And you know, when we do have that opportunity to spend time in places that you can truly disconnect, you know, take that walk up that track or up that trek, you know, up that hill where you're not going to get good internet connectivity. You know, do those different types of activities. Take a screenshot of this, you know, talk to, you know, your kids about it, see if it's something that they may want to engage in, you know. Try and relive that art of conversation. I think when kids go back out to school, it might be really, really difficult because they may forget how to actually speak to someone. I'm laughing while I'm saying it, but I'm also crying inside because it is a real thing, right? That level of communication to express yourself and, you know, to win over someone, whether it be a friend, a future employer, a university admissions officer, the art of communication, you know, can go a long way. So with that, folks, I must say thank you very much. It brings us to the end of the presentation tonight. We do have, you know, time for some question and answers. But before we even get into that, I want to encourage and ask everyone sitting on the meeting this afternoon to follow CyberSafe and EnvoyTT on our social media platforms. It would really help us to build our platforms and also help us to share the messages you know, as we go along. You can also visit cybersafettt.com. I do have a lot of resources on the website, and certainly do look out for something brand new that's coming on cybersafettt.com. And this one is geared towards the students. So stay connected, stay in touch. We have some really exciting things coming out soon. So thank you again. Follow us on social media. And I'm going to, you know, stop sharing the sites, open the floor to some question and answers. I don't know if the EnvoyTT team wants to, you know, comment on the presentation. And if anyone wants me to go back to any of the slides, just let me know and I would just reshare again. So thank you very much.
I don't think it's a comment per se, but more gratitude. Thank you so much, Mr. Duray, for this. It honestly falls in line so greatly with things that we've seen before at Envoy. You know, we might think it's a small act, it's something small. Okay, as simple as okay, you send a child receives a mean message, but it goes into so much greater and so much more depth than that. That you know, it's really important to understand. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart and from on behalf of my entire board, thank you for that presentation. And yes, if anybody would like to ask any questions or anything like that, please feel free.
So, you know, whilst we're waiting on the floor to actually give us some questions, we did have some situations that happened over, you know, the COVID period that, you know, was a little bit worrying, you know, in terms of kids not really understanding that they are actually now in an online environment. And, you know, you have very inappropriate messages happening in the chat. Now, sometimes they may have that level of conversation with their peers when they're gaming and forget that, listen, I am no longer gaming, because, you know, sometimes they might be gaming and schooling at the same time, right? So they may end up, you know, saying something quite inappropriate in the chat. Not with the intention to disrespect the teacher, but just kind of forgetting that which environment that they're in at any one point in time. And that's one of the reasons why, you know, I try to encourage, listen, if you're in school, you're in school, you should treat it that way. Let's not be gaming while you're in school. If you have a free period, it's not an opportunity for you to go and game. Because the problem with that now is you're not really looking forward for what the next class is. You're just looking forward to when the next free time is so that I can go and game. And you don't have that level of concentration that you should have to really absorb the message, which is already a very difficult thing to do in the virtual environment. So the level of distractions is surreal, to be honest with you, in terms of what we are currently faced with, what kids are currently faced with, right? Like I said, I honestly, I think the only way to deal with that is for us to go back to physical school. I really think it's near impossible for us to adequately deal with it in the current environment. But parents should be aware that it's not just that they're occupying their time, but we should treat virtual school in a similar way in which, we would have treated, school face to face, where, okay, so you have a free period, maybe you might do your homework or interact with someone else, but you're not looking for that game. And remember, the game is different, right? The game is a level of addiction. So you're trying to fuel that level of addiction. And yeah, you're probably thinking, my son is 8 years old. How could he be addicted to anything, right? He's too young, but that's a real thing. There are internet addiction centers in North America and United Kingdom where kids as young as 6 years old have to go in to get rid of that internet addiction. It's that bad. So I mean, I know that we have quite a lot of parents in on the call this afternoon, and we're going to leave the floor open for a little bit if anyone has any questions. If not, you could feel free to direct it to either Envoy or even CyberSafeTT. I'm going to put my email in the chat.
I have a question myself. I could see myself having a bit of a phone addiction. It's always on me. So, how would you suggest? I know a lot of us, we keep our phone as a form of safety as well. So, we could always have someone to call. Some of our parents or close friends might have like Life 360 apps to track us in these scary times. So, how do you give like an example where you could still have the phone for safety, but not have it always with you where you're just on it all the time?
Sure. So definitely, notifications. That's the start of everything that's bad with respect to whether it is social media or even games, right? Because you might try to actively keep the phone in your bag, in your pocket, and not really be interactive with it. But you hear that noise or you receive that vibration and you pick it up and say, okay, now I'm in. Now you're looking at the screen, but now you end up doing a whole host of other things as well, right? So notifications. The nice thing about both the Android and Apple operating system is that the developers of those two platforms, they have accepted, I don't want to use admitted, they have accepted that addiction to these devices is a thing. Now, they don't entirely want you not to use the device because that in itself is a money-making activity for them, right? But they've put in certain tools that's built into the OS to help you manage your time. So I actually have screen time management for certain types of apps, right? Social media, productivity apps. I use Do Not Disturb quite a lot. I tie in my Do Not Disturb to my calendars so that I wouldn't get notifications from certain apps during particular days, times when I might be in a meeting, right? And you can look at that level of control from within the operating system of the device itself. So yes, you have it in the case of emergency, but you're also telling the device, listen, don't distract me, right? When I'm ready for you, I can pick you up and use it, So if you are trying to make a conscious effort, not to interact, that would be the first port of call. Take off those distractions, those notifications, and then you will probably want to set up your screen time management and do not disturb settings so that, you don't get, I guess, bothered, when you should really be focusing on something else.
Thank you.
So you're going to try taking off some notification, right, Caitlin?
Yes, I will be.
Well, I think we can give the floor a few minutes, maybe 1 or 2 minutes again. And if not, we could close off for this afternoon. Yeah.
But I do have a question for you, and my question is more legal in nature. I wanted to know your opinions on the cybercrime bill. I mean, it's not passed yet, but did you have any opinions on it? What's on the contents? If you could have changed or added anything in there, what would you do to that bill?
Good question. So I was invited, and I actually did comment and submit my comments to the Joint Select Committee on 2 occasions that it was actually open. The first one actually was a little bit of comment. I think it was okay. Now I know that there has been a lot of conversation regarding the infringement of rights as it pertains to some elements. I'm not really going in that direction. I think that we do need some level of gatekeeping, and that was probably addressed in future versions of the bill. What I would like to say, however, is in the 2017 permutation of the cybercrime bill, I believe they removed the term cyberbullying from the bill itself. And that to me was really startling, because the original version of the bill actually had cyberbullying and there was a definition. It was very well laid out with respect to the repercussions in terms of engaging in that activity. And even though it is mentioned in a certain roundabout way, my response or my comment to the bill at that time is that I make reference to these things when I have my conversations. The general public would want to know what they can and cannot do. And if you make it very difficult for them to understand what the law is, then you are almost asking them to get into trouble. In the original permutation, where it was very well written out, you actually could have seen the term cyberbullying. There was no question. And because cyberbullying is a very prominent thing, real thing in Trinidad and Tobago, it needed to be that prominent, right? It needed to be pronounced in the bill itself. So the last version of the bill that I would have seen did not have it in it. And it's something that, I would like to see eventually when it gets passed, that, maybe it is included. Now, interestingly enough, if you actually look at cybercrime bills around the world, some actually have cyberbullying written in, some and some don't. And I don't know which particular line that we are taking in terms of, following or taking a precedence from. But my opinion, CyberSafeTT's opinion, is that I really believe that cyberbullying should have remained as part of the final bill.
Thank you for that. And I actually asked because I was at one point before we started this campaign browsing the what would have been the act or the proposed act, and I thought that was so strange that you would not include the thing that you are trying to define. So I just wanted to know what your opinions on that would have been. Is there any particular act or any particular regulation that you think is very good at any part in the world that you think we should adopt?
So I usually reference sites or comment on cybercrime law and school codes of conduct from Australia. I really find that they seem to have a pretty good hold on things. It even helps. I think it even helps parents get information in terms of how to deal with certain situations. The way in which they put across their information is very easy for the average person to read. So I think that they're a good model to follow. And I see we have the results of the poll. Has your child ever spoken to you or reported a cyberbullying act? Now, 1/3 of the population today said yes, right? And that's good, because that's a higher number than 1 in 5, kids actually being cyberbullied. So I have to commend, the parents for being that open, right? And I think sessions like this would encourage you to have conversation with your kids, and see what's happening in the community. So, you might have seen that video, with the fight, with that bullying activity. That would have been a catalyst for you to have a conversation, right? Don't let it slide. Don't speak about it in in a way that will not educate and help, to bridge that gap. So, pay attention to things like that, and hopefully we will be able to solve this problem soon. So I'm seeing we're getting some thank you messages in the chat. Again, thanks to everyone. Thanks to Envoy for making this possible. And I think, Anurada, we could probably look at, closing things off tonight.
Definitely. I just last call for questions. Is anything about CyberSafeTT, about EnvoyTT, anything? I would also like to take this opportunity to say that if anyone knows of children that may benefit from academic help, you can feel free to send an email to EnvoyTT. We try as hard as possible to help those children that can't afford the outside help, that can't really afford, to go to lessons and all of these things. That's really our aim. Just to clarify it a bit, what we do is that we have volunteers that come to us, and my team and I, we would pair these volunteers with the students, and we keep constant track of the work being done. So if you know anyone that might benefit, please do reach out. Thank you. Okay, so I think that's about